In the postmodern era, socially engaged literary scholars grapple with a series of paradoxes. Taking action in the world presupposes a belief in the truth of one's own ideas. However, if truth is deemed unknowable, as contemporary theory often suggests, what justifies one's commitment? False universal principles have historically been used to justify exploitation. But if the oppressed are to break free from oppression, must they adhere to equally false universal principles? What sets their pursuit apart from that of their oppressors? If competing claims for justice stem from fundamentally different interpretations of reality, how can conflicts be resolved without resorting to violence? And how do these questions pertain to the study of literature? Eagleton, Jameson, and Said address these issues by examining them through the lens of writings from formerly colonized regions. While their insights apply to literary production in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East, they specifically focus on the Irish context. Eagleton, Jameson, and Said contribute to this endeavor by applying their theoretical perspectives to the question of nationalism and the role of cultural production in post-colonial societies, with Ireland as a key example. In his introductory essay, C. Dean illustrates the fruitful application of these perspectives to the interpretation of Irish history, literature, and politics. He demonstrates how Irish nationalism absorbed various British stereotypes, despite primarily serving as a reaction against British imperialism. Dean argues that neither the resulting myth of Irish national identity nor recent debunkings of it provide adequate tools for addressing the present conflict. He emphasizes the need to read writers like Joyce, Yeats, and Synge within the specific historical context that produced them, viewing them as enduring presences within this context. Dean's ultimate goal is to present Irish literature and culture as a unified tradition that can function as an empowering system, allowing people to act in certain ways, while recognizing that their universal principles, national origins, and stable identity concepts are all constructs. By placing these constructs within a concrete historical context, and adopting an attitude of ironic self-consciousness towards them, Dean aims to transcend sectarian conflicts and exploitative tendencies, without relinquishing allegiance to specific places, communities, and cultural practices. Eagleton's essay, Nationalism, Irony and Commitment, arrives at a similar conclusion through a slightly different route. He highlights the inherent contradictions in the nationalist aspirations of a colonized people, as they remain conceptually tied to the colonizers' view of reality, which they aim to reject, and to a pre-existing project that already encompasses the reality they seek to create. Eagleton argues that those who voice such aspirations are never fully congruent with themselves as actors in a specific historical context. There is always a divide between what they are and what they profess to be. To navigate this dilemma, Eagleton suggests interrogating the present with all its contradictions and alienations, to identify a space from which a feasible future might emerge. This concrete and specific space must be embraced before it can be transcended through an awareness of more abstract general principles. In essence, Eagleton contends that individuals can only free themselves by recognizing and wholeheartedly living out their unique differences in an ongoing dialectic between the specific and the general. This dialectical process, he posits, will eventually lead them to inquire about the universal conditions that must be met before their individual needs can be fulfilled. This inquiry, Eagleton asserts, will culminate in the realization that others, of different races, genders, or nations, must also be liberated for true freedom to be achieved. Like Dean, Eagleton advocates for an ironic self-consciousness that, akin to Joyce's, can view its own totalizations skeptically and perceive its specific someplace as a universal anyplace. Jameson's essay, Modernism and Imperialism, primarily focuses on the consciousness of the colonizer, but also acknowledges Joyce's use of irony in a positive light. He contrasts Joyce's Ulysses with E. M. Forster's Howard's End, to demonstrate how Joyce's irony and stylistic innovations acted as surrogates for the new form of verbal discourse required to define the realities of the modern world. Although Joyce did not explicitly identify the exploitative relationships governing this world, he recognized the need to transcend conventional uses of language, an imperative Forster did not share. Jameson views modernism as a compensatory mechanism allowing Westerners to enjoy the benefits of global imperialism, while turning a blind eye to the suffering it inflicted on Third World populations. Nevertheless, Joyce and other Irish writers' modernist works were distinct in that they were rooted in a Third World reality, overlapping with a First World socio-economic environment. This awareness, Jameson argues, altered the nature of the modernist project, and endowed it with a new potential for liberation. In Yeats and Decolonization, Said advances a similar thesis regarding the Irish poet. He contends that culture had buttressed Euro-American political and economic hegemony in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Western concepts of human nature, civilization, and commodity value had contributed to the subjugation of Third World peoples and the usurpation of their lands. Faced with their own disenfranchisement, these peoples crafted nationalist myths to justify their anti-imperialist struggle. However, these nationalist causes were often co-opted by reactionary forces, and even socially committed writers found themselves compelled to adopt the language of the colonizer, laden with its associations of oppression and domination. Said maintains that nationalism, under these conditions, represents the initial step towards liberation. Writers like Yeats, Césaire, Neruda, Faze, and Darwish, by reimagining new worldviews to supplant those promoted by colonial powers, propel this movement forward. Consequently, Said asserts that Yeats is best understood not as a modernist or representative of British high culture, but as the national poet of a Third World people. Even his mystical imagery, such as Perns and Gyres, reflects an understanding that the moment was unfavorable for his revolutionary aspirations, and that the acquisition of power alone is insufficient to bring about the liberation he envisioned. Said's essay underscores an intricate interplay between literature and a contemporary reality, deeply shaped by the enduring impact of colonialism, and the corresponding rise of nationalist movements in opposition. While not everyone may be swayed by the use of Ireland as a model for the broader global situation, it is hard not to appreciate the intellectual acumen with which they probe the potential for forging new modes of discourse, to grapple with seemingly insurmountable conflicts, such as the one in Northern Ireland. Without compromising their social dedication or sidestepping the complexities of postmodern theory, they all affirm the imperative of anchoring literary analysis, in an understanding of the specific historical circumstances that underlie all cultural productions, infusing them with significance. They also concur in advocating for the cultivation of an ironic self-consciousness that might empower individuals to persevere in the arduous and potentially unending struggle for liberation. While their solutions may not offer conclusive answers, they merit serious consideration for anyone seeking to harmonize the imperatives of social engagement with the complexities of contemporary critical theory.